June 12th, 2025. A routine flight from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick turns into one of the deadliest aviation disasters in Indian history. 275 lives gone in less than 5 minutes. A Boeing 787 Dreamliner, trusted by millions, falls from the sky and slams into a college hostel. What caused this modern marvel of engineering to fail so catastrophically? And how did one man, just one, walk away from the wreckage? This is the story of Air India Flight 171, and it begins with a nightmare no one saw coming. June 12th, 2025. It was supposed to be a routine long-haul journey. Air India Flight 171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, was scheduled to depart from Ahmedabad's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport at 1:30 p.m. local time. On board were 230 passengers and 12 crew members, among them 169 Indian nationals, 53 British citizens, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian. There were 11 children. One of the passengers was Vijay Rupani, the former Chief Minister of Gujarat, seated in business class. Commanding the flight was Captain Sumit Sabharwal, a 55-year-old line training captain with over 8,200 hours of flying experience. At his side, First Officer Clive Kundar, 32, with 1,100 hours in the cockpit. The aircraft was an 11-year-old Dreamliner powered by General Electric Genex 1B67 engines. It had logged thousands of hours across international routes and was considered one of the most advanced jets in Air India's fleet. At approximately 1:38 p.m., the aircraft began its takeoff roll on runway 23, but something was off. Flight data later revealed that the Dreamliner used the entire 3.5-kilometer runway, far more than usual. There were no warnings, no flap adjustments, and no requests for runway changes. At 1:39 p.m., the wheels left the ground. The aircraft climbed to just 625 feet before its signal vanished. 17 seconds later, a chilling call crackled over air traffic control. Thrust not achieved. Falling. Mayday. 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 Then, silence. 5 minutes after takeoff, Flight 171 disappeared from radar, and the nightmare had only just begun. At 1:39 p.m., Air India Flight 171 lifted off from runway 23. The aircraft climbed to just over 600 feet, but something was wrong. The Dreamliner wasn't gaining altitude, it was gliding, struggling. Then came the call no controller ever wants to hear. Mayday, mayday, no thrust, we are falling. 17 seconds later, the signal vanished. The Boeing 787 crashed just 1.5 kilometers from the runway, slamming into the hostel block of Bairamji Jijibhoi Medical College in the Megani Nagar neighborhood. Inside, dozens of medical students were eating lunch. The aircraft tore through the dining hall, igniting a massive explosion. Eyewitnesses described the impact as an earthquake. One local said, "Our house shook. The windows shattered. Then we saw the smoke." Another, Raju Patel, a construction worker, rushed to the scene. There were bodies everywhere. The heat was unbearable. We tried to help, but the fire was too intense. The tail section of the aircraft came to rest on the rooftop. The fuselage disintegrated. Jet fuel ignited a firestorm that engulfed the hostel and nearby buildings. 241 people on board were killed. 19 more died on the ground. More than 60 others, students, doctors, residents, were injured. But amid the devastation, a miracle. His name is Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, a 40-year-old British national of Indian origin, seated in 11A near the emergency exit. When the aircraft hit the building, his section of the fuselage remained partially intact. I thought I was dead," he later said. "But I opened my eyes, and I was still breathing." With his seatbelt still fastened, Vishwas unbuckled, kicked through a broken panel, and crawled out. He walked, dazed, bleeding, through the wreckage. Locals rushed to help. One man shouted, "The plane exploded!" Vishwas was the only one to survive. His brother, seated beside him, did not. In the days that followed the crash, investigators from India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, alongside experts from the US NTSB and UK AAIB, arrived in Ahmedabad. Their mission? To uncover what brought down a modern Boeing 787 Dreamliner just seconds after takeoff. The first breakthrough came on June 13th, when the cockpit voice recorder was found lodged on a rooftop. 3 days later, the flight data recorder was recovered from the debris field. Both were flown under armed escort to Delhi's AAIB laboratory, where a high-level team began the delicate process of data extraction. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the final chilling moments in the cockpit. Captain Sumit Sabharwal's voice was calm until it wasn't. Thrust not achieved, falling, "Mayday, Mayday," then alarms, confusion, silence. The flight data recorder painted an equally disturbing picture. The aircraft's General Electric Gen X engine showed a sudden and simultaneous drop in thrust, a dual-engine failure. The ram air turbine, a last resort emergency generator, had deployed, confirming a total loss of electrical power. But how could both engines fail at once? On July 11th, the AAIB released its preliminary report, and the findings were startling. According to the data, both fuel control switches were manually moved to the cutoff position just 3 seconds after liftoff. One pilot is heard asking the other, "Why did you do the cutoff?" To which the other responds, "I didn't." The switches were quickly turned back on, and while one engine began to recover, the other couldn't regain thrust in time. This revelation has shifted the investigation's focus. Experts are now examining human error. Was this an accidental movement of the switches, or something more deliberate? Mechanical failure. Could a fault in the throttle control module have triggered the cutoff? Systemic oversight. A 2018 FAA advisory warned of potential disengagement in fuel switch locking mechanisms. Air India did not act on it, as it wasn't mandatory. The RAT's deployment is a smoking gun. It only activates when both engines fail or when electrical systems collapse. Experts call it a game changer, evidence of a systemic failure, not just human error. The investigation continues. While the preliminary report offers a timeline and technical clues, it stops short of assigning blame. The final report may take months or even years to complete. But one thing is clear. This wasn't just a crash. It was a failure of systems, safeguards, and perhaps something more sinister. The crash of Air India. Flight 171 wasn't just a tragedy. It was a national trauma. In the hours that followed, the streets of Ahmedabad filled with sirens, smoke, and sorrow. And across India, a single question echoed: how could this happen? The death toll stood at 260, including 241 on board and 19 on the ground. Among the dead, medical students, families returning from weddings, and children who had never flown before. The lone survivor, Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, was discharged from hospital just days later, only to carry the coffin of his brother. India's top leadership responded swiftly. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the crash site and met with grieving families. Home Minister Amit Shah and Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu pledged full support and transparency. A 24/7 control room was activated. Emergency helplines were launched. And Air India, under the Tata Group, began issuing interim compensation of 25 lakh rupees about 21,500 pounds, to each victim's family. More than 500 volunteers from Air India and other Tata companies were deployed to assist with DNA identification, hospital coordination, and funeral arrangements. Each family was assigned a dedicated caregiver. This wasn't just logistics, it was compassion in action. But not everyone was satisfied. In the UK, families of British victims accused their government of a disorganized and understaffed response. One family, who lost a couple and their 4-year-old daughter, said they felt utterly abandoned. And in India, outrage erupted when a video surfaced of Air India executives partying just days after the crash. 4 senior officials were fired. The public demanded accountability, not just apologies. The crash exposed more than a single failure. It revealed cracks in the system. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, launched surprise audits across India's busiest airports. What they found was alarming. Outdated pilot training simulators, maintenance logs left incomplete, safety equipment in disrepair, faded runway markings and misaligned lights. Even life vests were found unsecured inside aircraft cabins. The DGCA gave airlines 7 days to fix the issues. But for many, the damage was already done. Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu called the crash a tragedy that demands introspection. He announced a multi-level investigation and a high-level committee to review engine reliability, crew training, emergency protocols, airport infrastructure. The goal? To ensure that no family ever has to endure what these families did. The crash of Air India. Flight 171 was more than a tragedy. It was a wake-up call. In the weeks that followed, aviation authorities around the world began asking hard questions, not just about what happened, but about what could happen again. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, ordered sweeping inspections of all Boeing 787 aircraft in the country. Air India cut 15% of its international wide-body flights to allow for enhanced safety checks too. And the airline's internal scheduling practices came under fire, with regulators citing violations of crew rest and licensing protocols. But the lessons didn't stop at India's borders. This was the first fatal crash involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and it reignited scrutiny of Boeing's safety culture, already under fire after the 737 MAX disasters. Investigators are now examining whether the Dreamliner's thrust control malfunction accommodation system could have played a role. This software, designed to shut down engines in rare thrust anomalies, is being reviewed for unintended consequences. Meanwhile, the global aviation community is turning to artificial intelligence. AI-powered systems are being developed to detect anomalies in real time, forecast component failures, and assist pilots in high-stress scenarios. This tragedy demands more than condolences, said one aviation analyst. It demands transformation. From predictive maintenance to real-time cockpit alerts, AI is poised to revolutionize aviation safety. But technology alone isn't enough. The crash of Flight 171 exposed deeper issues: gaps in oversight, incomplete maintenance logs, lapses in crew scheduling, and a system that sometimes prioritizes efficiency over safety. The lesson is clear: safety must never be assumed. It must be earned every flight, every day. I think this was shocking, but what if the disaster wasn't an accident? What if the pilot planned it all along? The next story is almost too horrifying to believe, because this time, the crash was no mistake. Watch German pilot crashes, plane on purpose. Click on the video on your screen and prepare yourself.